say Happy New Year's to those who are already here. It's exciting to begin the New Year's thinking about big races, such as like the One City Marathon. It's an exciting race. We've run it a few times, haven't we?
Yes, we have. Year 10 this year for the race.
Yeah.
That is a big accomplishment.
A big accomplishment.
Hope everyone's goal is gonna stay at this level.
Yeah. Anyone ran the race before a few times? Who's here? Mm-hmm. All right, let's begin our presentation. I'm going to share our screen.
Mhm.
Can everyone see that? You can give me a thumbs up or unmute yourself, say yes or not, so that we know that you can see the presentation slide, and on the corner should be able to see us as well.
I can see it.
Thank you so much. Confirming. Great.
We're good to go.
That's right. Well, again, Happy New Year's. I'm Coach Luciano Medina.
I am Marie.
It's Marie. We ran, as I said, the One City Marathon plenty of times.
Handful of time at this point, yeah.
But you've ran it a lot more than I have, I believe.
Let's count 3 or 4 times.
3 or 4 times, and won it. And so our presentation today is an introduction to marathon and half marathon training. During the presentation, feel free to interrupt us, or even on the chat put a question. At the end of the presentation, we also have a Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can ask within the presentation or wait towards the end. Remember, the idea of the presentation is just to provide you knowledge or hopeful experiences that we have gathered, so that you can tackle the marathon or the half marathon and enjoy as much as we have. All right.
All right, so author and coach Matt Fitzgerald, I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with him, but he is a well-known name in the world of writing, and he says that 80% of your race success is mental. Essentially, today we're going to be chatting about the remaining 20%. All right, let's dig into it. So when you look at your training, whether it is towards the half marathon or towards the marathon, you want to look at the 4 major elements that we have here on the screen. The first one, and absolutely the most essential one, being building a solid foundation. And then we move forward to speed and efficiency, then rest and recovery. And then we'll talk a little bit about additional consideration, which are going to include strength training, your fueling, the mental aspect of training and racing, and the running gear, to really just create a full, complete training block and set yourself up for success on race day.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll continue. So we'll dig right into it with building a solid foundation. And what does that mean? That means building your aerobic capacity. The marathon and the half marathon, both distances are really long, so they're highly dependent on your ability to go to run, especially for a long period of time. And in order to do that, to build that solid foundation, you need 2 things. Your base mileage, and your base mileage is essentially all the little easy run that you do through the week. It's nothing fancy. It's like the bread and butter. It's the boring stuff. It's the things that most people don't like to do. It's getting out the door when it's cold, when it's rainy, or in any conditions, and really grinding out those little tiny easy miles. They help build your aerobic capacity, even if they feel, very easy. They really, really help in that matter. And very importantly too, is they condition your body for the pounding. So they help you sustain a really higher training load and being able to do a harder thing. It all starts with that base.
Yeah, I like to think of it as the base mileage is what builds your gas tank. the bigger your gas tank, well, the farther you can go.
And that's where it starts for everybody, whether you're beginner athletes, whether you're experienced, advanced athletes, it all starts with that base. So get out there and do your little easy runs before digging into anything else. And then the second aspect of building a base is that long session. As I mentioned, the half marathon and the marathon are really long events. So you're going to need to be able to cover the distance. So it starts by performing some long runs in your training.
These long runs are usually used to, imitate the duration of the race itself, well, to a certain extent.
All right, continuing a little bit more into details when we talk about the long runs, and I'm gonna, split my thoughts into the marathon and half marathon training because there are some differences. I'm gonna start with the marathon. When we talk about doing that long run, we usually talk about performing it every 7 to 10 days. Most people, we do it every week because we like to be in a weekly routine, but every 10 days is also a good approach when it comes to marathon training. A beginner athletes will want to start wherever they're comfortable with, right? You don't have to start 10 miles. You don't have to start 15 miles. Start wherever you are and then gradually build up that long session over the weeks. You will want to reach typically 120 miler within the month of your race for that longest run. If that's your first marathon, first time you're doing it, that's a great goal to have. And if, how much is too much, it really depends on the athletes. And when you're experienced and advanced athletes, may complete a 22 miler, or let's say a 3-hour run every single week for like 6 to 8 weeks. And those long runs may incorporate some marathon pace and just some harder effort within the long session. The idea is, is the consistency of those long runs. You need to be repeated every 7 to 10 days, let's say. For the half marathon training, it's a shorter event. So the focus tends to be on some maybe more intense things, and we'll talk about it in the next slides. So the long run is just not as much of a focus, but I said it's still a long event. So
It's still a long event.
Still a long event. So
Yeah.
you still need to have it part of your training, and that's essential. You usually say every 10 to 14 days, every 2 weeks or so to have a longer run is recommended. A beginner athletes on that peak week may want to complete a 12 miler. Most advanced athletes may want to do, let's say, a 2-hour run, or that could be like a 16 miler within a month of the race. Those are good markers to have.
Yeah. So typically even a beginner athletes, you are taking, let's say, about 2 hours to complete this distance to half marathon. So this is still quite a long session. And so you may aim just to try to get somewhere near this mark.
So that concludes the foundation part. So we talk about base miles and we talk about long runs. So now we're going to move on to the second element of the training block. And you can slide the next. You just move down. There you go. Speed and efficiency.
So there are 2 things that are important. So we discussed the speed. We discussed already the long run. Now the speed and efficiency. What this really means is you want to be able to do your running and your racing in a very optimal manner. And so optimal is a combination of these, having good speed and being efficient. To develop your speed and efficiency also improves, that is directly related to your running mechanics. One, which is called interval training, and this is gonna be segments that are fast, usually faster than goal pace rate, than your goal pace for your race. Can be like a 5K effort, a 10K effort, or faster. Is something that you do incrementally over time or over the period of your training. So at the beginning, you have shorter segments and you build it up to longer segments where you may start at faster speeds, and then you decrease your speed, but you increase the length or the duration of your components. Interval training also it's a word we can use to encompass things like repetitions or fartlek style runs. This is still components of interval training. And the second component is like a tempo run, but this is more where you have a longer sustained effort. So you can do for a half marathon, maybe a 4-miler at your half marathon goal pace, and this maybe take you either 30 something minutes or 20 something minutes, let's say like 28 actually, or yeah, around 30 minutes or so, depending on your abilities. It can take you 40 minutes. A tempo run is also, you think of it as a rhythm that you're trying to sustain, more like a moderate effort. And these tempo runs over the period of your training will help you better mimic what you will be able to do, let's say, on race day, or at least get you familiar with how that effort feels before getting to your races itself.
All right, the third element for the training block, rest and recovery. Because in order to train really well and have results, it's not just about beating yourself up and running so much and cross training so much and doing all these things. So there's different little subcategories when it comes to rest and recovery. The whole idea behind it is you get stronger when you rest, right? Training is great, but you break down all muscle fibers. And what makes you actually stronger is not the fact that you break them, it's the fact that you repair them. And when they repair themselves, they become stronger. And that happens when you recover, when you rest and recover. So how to do that within your training is simply, the simple one is full race days. Once in a while, have a day when you don't do much, no activity. You just fully take in the rest. It helps recover the body, but the mind too. It's nice to know, like, I don't have to get out the door today. I don't have to exercise. Kind of earn that, and that is a high benefit. Next is a deloading week. We talked about building your training over time, doing a little bit more every week. But sometimes once in a while, you may actually want to do a little bit less this week than you did the prior week, right? You deload a little bit. That's going to help you really take in the benefit of the training, and it's going to help you really build in the future. So, you build up for, let's say, 4 weeks, and then you can have a week when you do a little bit less. You're still active, right? You're not taking the whole week off, but you're just doing a little bit less running. And then you're back on track doing a little bit more, and you kind of repeat that cycle as you go. Active recovery. So the process of recovering is not just sleeping on the couch and doing nothing. You can recover while still moving your body, right? So whether it's cross training, whether it's, I don't know, do you have any other?
Yeah, biking, I go on the rower or the skier. These are little things I like to do. Instead of running, we want to take a little break from the pounding. And so you can still get your cardio. And in this case.
Yeah, it could be cardio, it could be just different activities. It's just the process of, I'm doing this in order to recover, whether it's icing, whether it's stretching, like all these things. It's an active process. It's doing all these things that are going to make you feel better the next day, right? And finally, nutrition and sleep. So nutrition, eating what you need when you need it. For example, having a carbohydrate and protein mixed drink after a really intensive training sessions within, the 30 to 60-minute post-workout is really going to help you optimize your recovery. And sleeping well, life can get in the way, and it's very important to be able to, allocate the time to get in good sleep. Because, and when we sleep, we recover those muscle fibers more than any other time during the day. So getting that Z time is going to make a big difference in order to get stronger.
Yeah, I mean, we're going through these slides. Just remember, if you have any questions, each of these topics itself, and even subcategories can be books long. So there's much more than we can say. So like, even just to add here, like, when can I take a full rest day? That's usually after the long session. You may feel a little bit more beat up, more fatigue. Maybe you should opt for a full rest day. And in terms of deloading your training, what does that really specifically mean? It means can either do less mileage, right, for the week.
That's right.
Or you could cut down the intensity too. Usually
it could be deloading in terms of volume, or deloading in terms of intensity, or a little bit of both as well.
Yeah. Well, usually we try to plan a little deloading week before, let's say, a test race. So if you're doing a marathon, you may consider doing a half marathon before the marathon. And so on that week, we'll do a little less. So kind of like a little short taper. Or if you're doing a half marathon and you plan to run a 10K prior to that, then maybe that week you want to plan a down week. Or, as we mentioned, the active recovery. But remember, please, if you have any questions, there's much more that we can say about these topics. But it also considers when you eat. So it's important, the timing of it. And here we have a little a question, I believe. Just to remind you, feel free to raise your hand or type in a question in the chat in the text box. So fueling, as I said, was not the same as nutrition. The timing of it is important, and Coach Marie just mentioned it before. After a hard training session, you want to make sure that you fuel immediately after. There's a little window, about 20-30 minutes, that you can take advantage of. Then there's also the mental preparedness of the training and the race itself. So when you are doing some of the tougher sessions, whether it's your interval training or your long runs or your tempo runs, these can be very challenging. But at the same time, they serve as an opportunity for you to envision the race, envision the challenge that you will feel in the race, and also get comfortable with what is that feeling that you're feeling when you're running at a certain pace or at a certain intensity. The more you experience this, actually, the better you will get at experiencing the discomfort if you're running at such intensities. And this also will help you on race day in a significant way. And there's the running gear you want to test out during your training, the clothing, whether the sneakers, or the shorts, your shirt, if it's a cold run, whether you want to wear gloves or hat, all the gear that you plan on actually using on race day. And it's important to try it because, let's say for the longer events, which are both a half marathon and a marathon, you may consider carrying some gels, little items to fuel yourself. So the gear can be used towards your comfort and benefit by having pockets and things like that. So it's important to try all the gear before the race itself. And then it's also something to really take into consideration is the strength training as part of your training block or your training week or your routine. You need to consider also strength training, and we can say a lot more about this in the next slide. So the strength training at this point in time, it's understood that should not be thought of additional training. It should be part of your routine. So commonly amongst our athletes, among ourselves, we'll do strength training at least twice a week. So usually it follows the harder sessions. So for example, if you do your long run on a Sunday, Monday is supposed to be your day off. So this is a great day for you to go and do your strength component. Your strength component involves different movements. Typically, we like to perform compound movements. That just means that these are movements that allow you to target different muscles of your body at the same time, rather than an isolated exercise. An isolated exercise is like curls, which is just targeting your bicep. But if you're doing like a squat, you're doing your quads, you're doing your glutes, you're doing your core. So it targets a lot more different muscles. And so it's something that you should take into full consideration. Trying to do it at least twice a week. 2 times to 3 times a week is outstanding. And there are so many benefits to it, not just increased strength and power, which just makes you, having a stronger body will make you, of course, a better athlete, which allows you to perform better, but also just generally speaking is beneficial to have a stronger body. And also it decreases the chances of you being injured because it improves your balance, your stability, and again, you just have a stronger body.
And finally, so we went through all the major aspects of training, overviewing, very general matter. But what's going to make you succeed is to be consistent in your routine. Yes. Consistency is going to make you stronger, right? Aerobically and physically, but it's also going to keep you on your feet, right? This is the most people get injured because of the consistency, right? Because they didn't log in their easy mass through the week and they jumped into a workout and then jumping into a long run. And that is very demanding. It's like a surge on the body. So if you're consistent and you do all your work throughout the week, even if it's a little less than planned, right? Just that consistency, you're always getting out the door and doing what you have to. It's going to pay off dividends in every way possible.
Yeah, because what that allows us to do, if we come out every day, even if it's a little bit at a time, it gives our body some time to adapt to the training. And however, if you do not come out often enough, suppose you miss 2-3 days in a week, then your body begins to regress, and so it loses those gains that you're trying to make. And the next time you do go for a workout, which is typically the main workout, the most exciting workout, then that training session is just too much for your body. You come out very sore, achy, and this is where the injuries begin. So we are always, always encouraging our athletes to be consistent.
Consistency is key. So we put together the next 2 slides. This is just really for you guys to review. So there's a slide right here for half marathon training week and one for marathon training week. I'm just going to put the half marathon on here for now. So we just wanted to put on paper, all right, here's what we talked about. Here's what it looks like when you actually put together your week, Monday through Sunday. So we put a line for a beginner training for a half marathon and what the week will look like. And then below is the advanced. Since throughout this presentation, we kind of broke things down. It's always like beginner athletes and advanced, and you can adjust based on where you are.
All right, here's a question that we can immediately take on. Someone's asked, I'm running the Houston Marathon this Sunday. Half marathon this Sunday. Yeah, that's right. It is the Houston Half Marathon this Sunday. As a tune-up race for one city, ideally, how should my following week of training look like? So here, let's say you're taking this as a important race before the marathon. And so if your effort is very high at this half marathon, then you want to take basically you want to extend that deloading week. You need some days to recover from the half. Any race that you perform is going to require a high effort. And so after very high effort, especially a race type effort, you need to take at least the next 72 hours lightly, depending on whether you consider yourself a beginner or an advanced. Lightly means I'm just going to go and jog the next few days. So let's say Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, start performing some strides or something. While a beginner will take the next day completely off. It'll be a full rest day, and maybe also take the Tuesday fully off. It depends on where you are there. And if you would like to state more, we can give you more specific advice. But say if you're a 2-hour marathoner, then that was a half marathoner, then that was a long run, 2 hours of work on Sunday, then Monday, you're pretty tired. So
yeah, so the difference is let's say if you typically do a harder workout midweek and then your longer run throughout the weekend, the way I would change the following week after the Houston half is I would erase that midweek workout, kind of run, jog, recover throughout the whole week. And then by the time the weekend, you can just like log an easy long run. So the whole week would be easy. You would not have the intensity on Wednesday, whenever your usual midweek workout is. But you're still logging in some miles, maybe a little bit less than usual, because as you mentioned, if you take the Monday off, you may need Tuesday off, depending how you come out of the race. Don't be too hard on the mileage for that week, because your priority is going to be to recover from the half. You get a big benefits from going through doing such an effort in the race. So the mileage becomes secondary. So it's okay to lose a little bit there. Run easy, recover, and then within a week you'll be back on track to your usual routine.
Usually on the Sunday after the race, what we do is we remove the workout component of the long run, and we will opt for just logging in the miles on that day, as opposed to doing a more harder effort. All right, thank you so much for your question. Anything else? Let's put up.
Yeah, so we talked about even in this question, helps us talk about like our usual, how we usually structure the week. We like to do like 2 workouts a week as is instructed. So all right. Here's where I was got my thoughts back. So we're talking about all these components of training. We talked about base, and you can see base here when you're like at Monday doing an easy run, Tuesday doing an easy run, Friday doing an easy run. That's that base. That's your foundation. And then we talked about speed and efficiency, and you get it in what we put in there on that Wednesday. You're doing warm up, doing some strides, you're doing some high intensity intervals. I didn't put anything into details here, obviously, because it defines the purpose, but you get the idea. We talked about the long run as well, which here is on Saturday, let's say, with some pace miles in between what's called tempo. And then we have the strength session, and then we have some optional crush training, aerobic crush training, if it's a little too much running for you. And that really puts it all together. And we have the same thing for the marathon. You can see a little bit more volume, more emphasis put on that long session, but the idea is the same.
Yeah, the idea is still the same because at the end of the day, they're both endurance events, most very long events, anything over 90 minutes, then it's pretty long. It requires you to fuel appropriately and do more than just go out there and do a few light sessions a week. Let's see, we have another question here. It says, I needed to hear this. I'm about a 150 half marathoner at the moment, looking to run a 145 this Sunday. Thank you so much for your question. At 145, you're running what, an 8-minute pace flat?
Minute pace on the dot.
And so, Houston is going to be a flat race, just like one city. It's a very flat race. Temperatures are good also for this course. And so you want to make sure you come out steady, a little bit slower than your goal pace. Try then to find your goal pace, and then eventually you squeeze down the pace. It's usually how we like to think of a half in like 3 components. If you have any other question, please, feel free to ask. And that's it. Now we're open to any Q&A, any questions. We want us to go back into the slides. As I've said, each of these slides contain it's just a few words here, keywords, to just share with you so you can give you at least have a hint of where to go next. We can just do a few questions as people come up with them. So here's some general questions to warm you up.
How do I taper before my race?
How long do I taper? Right?
How long? All of the above, actually.
How do I taper? How long do I taper before my race? So that's actually a good question. We have, of course, our general answer here. You taper for a period of 7 to 10 days for a half marathon, 2 weeks for a marathon, gradually reducing your training load, meaning just bringing down, let's say, the mileage. And then, and as you bring down the mileage, the main workouts also, you cut down the number of reps that you will do. So you get to decrease also the amount of intense sessions.
Well, you decrease the volume,
reps.
but you tend to keep the intensity still.
But we still keep the intensity so that you can stay sharp. In the sense that you want to still practice your half marathon pace. So you are running on Sunday, then tomorrow or Wednesday, you can still do a few intervals at 8-minute pace in the question that was asked, so that you can make sure your legs and your body knows what this pace feels like. And then prior to the race, even the day before, some may opt to not run, take a full day off, and just roll or do whatever routine you usually have. More advanced runners, typically we still jog on the day before the race and do some strides. And it's quite, at this point, what we are trying to do is just fully get our body strengths back by resting and doing a significant amount less of what we have been doing prior. Would you like to add anything?
No.
One thing that is also important is that this is to rest 2 weeks. It means that you trained and then you rest 2 weeks. So
don't taper if you only train for a week. That's what
right.
I'm saying.
So
the taper can be individual to own situation. Life comes in the way, injuries happen, and if you were not able to benefit from an entire 20 block, you may not want to taper for 2 weeks, because taper is all about recovering from all that intensive work. If you didn't put in the intensive work, regardless of the reason, you may not want to taper for that long. It has happened to me. I've had some tough moments, and I had to show up to a marathon, just couldn't afford a taper. I was still building fitness, and that's all right. And that's part of it. Just being able to understand where you are and what is best for you.
Yeah.
You did a typical training block, go with a typical taper. If you're not able to train, then you may want to continue running as you would have normally done all the way through your race.
Yeah, so it's a very individualized. These are general advice, but things can vary based on what you have been able to do. All right, so Paolo says, typically how's weather for one city? Well, it has varied sometimes.
Very drastically. It tends to be great. I mean, it's that first week of March, so you typically, so we are ourselves in New York, and it tends to have a snowstorm in New York every year. We go down to one city, and the weather in one city is almost picture perfect for a marathon. We're talking low 40s, cloudy days. Great. But you know, it's Mother Nature. We can't order perfect weather every time, so it has its fluctuation year to year. But I think so. This year is going to be the 10th year. I think they have a pretty great record in terms of weather. I think maybe just there was that one hot year from us a couple of years ago, but apart from that, it's been pretty spectacular, and that's what you would expect in March, early March, particularly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're gonna get whatever you're gonna get.
Yeah, but typically it's great weather and a flat, fast course. All right, Kate says, will you consider yoga routine a rest or recovery, and where would that fit into the training?
Yeah, that would be cross training, fall into cross training.
Yeah.
So one of those days when you don't need to do the running, but you still want to move, right? You would do a yoga session, or you could even do it additionally to run if that is something you want to do.
Yeah. So rest or recovery. I mean, when you rest, you are recovering. So, and then the way that you rest or consider your recovery depends, because you can do something. It's a bit, it depends the type of yoga that you do, assuming that it's just a basic yoga session, then you would try to put this session following the day that is your hardest training session. So for example, if Saturday is your longer session, then on Sunday you want to follow up with your recovery day, your rest day, then a yoga session can be used on that day. You see, when we perform even a strength session or a yoga session or some type of cross training or movement, then we get to move our body in its full range of motion. And when we do this, this is considered very beneficial for our body. It stretches it. It allows us to improve our range of motion so that when we do run, we run in a more efficient manner. It improves the blood flow while you're exercising without doing the aerobic component, so doing your yoga in this case. And so again, this is going to be an active recovery day, so it benefits you. And so it's still considered rest because you're not pounding the ground and you're not bringing your heart rate significantly up, and you're not stressing your body as much.
Yeah, so the day after the hard sessions are going to be where we recommend putting it if you have all the flexibility in the world. Yeah.
Valora says, and Virginia, thanks. Okay. All right.
Virginia, yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you so much for the questions.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one that we have up.
How do I take that out?
Okay. All right, just read the question then.
How do I get back on track after a setback in training?
Well, you know, runners sometimes immediately after may want to jump, let's say, into the training. So we want to first avoid this. You don't want to just jump right back in. You want to take a few sessions. Usually is what I suggest, to just do some light running to see how you're feeling, and then get back into your routine. Maybe after a week or so, depending what your setback was, then you can get back into what your workout routines were. So whether you suffer an injury, got sick, or simply life got in the way, setbacks do happen, but do not jump back in.
Yeah, it's the same idea than when you begin training. You know, you start wherever you are and you build from there. So if you have an experience in extended period of time off during your block for whatever reason, same thing. You want to start back to where you were and build from that. Don't go back to where you were right before the setback.
At least they're having fun on the chat. It's meaning weather changes hourly. Actually, you know, it reminds me, when should I look at the weather and start taking it like seriously?
I think temperatures tend to be fairly accurate week out. Precipitation and wind forecasts, you may want to look only 48 hours out.
Yeah. Are we running one city this year?
We haven't planned on that. It's tough. Just our calendar looks a little challenging that weekend. We haven't made a final decision, but it's looking a little tough to make it out down that weekend, unfortunately. But it's not a definite answer yet.
Not definitely not. But it's an exciting race. It's a
Yeah.
wonderful race to be a part of. So I encourage everyone. Any other questions?
There was a third one.
Okay, skip it.
Oh no, we already did 3, that's why.
Yeah.
Oh no, did we do this one?
No.
Nice. Oh, okay, let's skip that one. What's the best fuel for long runs and when do I need it?
Ooh, the best fuel. It's not like asking for like the best brand, right? So it's not about brand, it's kind of best fuel. Still, you want to take carbs, right? A combination of carbs and electrolytes.
Starting when you run is at least 90 minutes. We
Yeah,
like to start fueling. For me, it's like when it starts to be longer than 2 hours. If you're going out there and your run is about an hour long, you have everything necessary in your body to be able to sustain it. You don't need to add anything during the run. Make sure you're properly fueled with your regular meals, but don't intake anything during the run unless it's really hot, and hydration is on separate topic, really strictly to fuel, meaning carbs. So if you start going above 90 minutes, then you may want to consider it, definitely if you're above 2 hours.
yeah. It's important to not immediately start taking like your gels when you're just doing any regular run. You want to make sure that if you're doing your usual run, an hour, 80 minutes, that you are just eating properly throughout the day. If during your run you don't feel that great or you feel very, very hungry, it tells you, hey, maybe I should have eaten a little bit more. And then when you begin going into these long runs, mean more than these 90 minutes, then is when we consider these the gels, the goos, the chews, honey stingers, what
Yeah,
else?
and look
All
at the
these
labels.
things.
They'll have their own instructions on, how often do you need to intake a gel. They usually say the general guideline, you'll be allowed to take a gel every 45 minutes.
Yeah.
We like to be a little bit more specific than that. Look at the label, look at how many grams of
Yeah.
carbs you have for a gel. Tends to be typically around 25 grams for a gel, but again, look at your label. For a marathon, you want to be around 50 grams of carbs per hour.
Yeah.
So if it takes you, 3 hours, you multiply that by 3, and that's how much you want to get in during the race. And of course, you want to spread that as evenly as you can. Don't just try to cram it all during the second half of the run. You want to take it in little by little, and your body will be able to use it accordingly.
Yeah.
Don't wait until you need it.
The rule of thumb is to start early and take it often. And very importantly, you have to practice it in the long runs before you get to the race itself. On race days, you do exactly what you practice, so that you. I guess if you do not have any other questions, oh, you froze up there. Oh, sorry. Okay, so I do not know where we froze up. Some Kimberly says, thank you for this one. Was one of my problem, not taking enough gel. So yeah, Kimberly, you just have to, I guess.
It takes practice, right? Those things are not the most enjoyable, but different brands have different textures if that's something that throws you off. So feel free to try different ones. And I said, it takes practice. It takes practice to take it, to, eat it, but also it takes practice for your gut to be able to use it.
Yeah, and adapt to it. All right, I believe that's all that we have. Let us know if you have anything else. Feel free to even email us at coachmedinanyc.com if you have coachmedinanyc@gmail.com if you have
any questions.
We're more than happy to answer them. You can also write us on Instagram. We're quite responsive on the visuals if you have anything else that you would like for us to discuss.
But we'd like to wish you all best of luck in all your races.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can make it down in Virginia and see you all on the first weekend of March. But if not, best of luck in your training. you know, feel free to review the presentation. We'll make it available to everyone, so you can
Mhm.
go through the little details and everything that we wrote, and hopefully that's helpful, and you can power through everything you need.
All right. It was a pleasure, everyone. Thank you so much.